morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on what time zone you're in or what time you're watching this video. We are officially back. This time with Sam. Just Sam. No Ren. This is a song that many of you have recommended, and I am honestly very, very excited to get into it. Before we do jump into it, just a reminder that we will do a live on Wednesday, starting at 1, hopefully. No technical difficulties and I don't know, something crazy. Nothing comes up, then we'll be good to go. It will be my first live, so I don't necessarily know how to run it yet, but I'm going to try to figure it out and make sure it stays figured out the whole time. And if it doesn't, I hope you will bear with me. But without further ado, let's jump into Sam. See Me. Love you all. Before we get started, I didn't realize that there was this like blue light thingy. It almost looks like I'm trying to blue screen something. I'm not onto my face, but if you want to imagine something there, feel free. Oh, it's on my nose now. If you want to imagine something there, feel free. But before we do get started, one thing I wanted to mention that I thought was really cool is that the way this is set up, we've got kind of 3 panels of Sam and then the body of Sam, and it's almost like mirrors. But I almost wonder if this is set up to be introspective, right? Where it's like each part is maybe a different part of himself, or just like, yeah, maybe it's like almost that same like high Ren feeling, except it's just maybe not as aggressive, where we're seeing different aspects of Sam, and that's kind of cool, and I hope we do get to see that. Okay, but without further ado, let's get into it.
I've never been confident, never wanted to take my shirt off in front of girls, and it's probably something that I have learned, need to come to terms and be honest with. But I'm too scared of what people might say. I'm afraid of everyone judging me. Once they observe what I preserve and stop loving me, 'cause that shit hurts, I did it first and it's cutting me deeper than a knife ever could. I'm no good.
Okay, hang on. Wow, so many things. The first is we did actually see the mirrors do that, where we're seeing that introspective side where there's 2 on the outside weren't really saying anything with the song going on, like they weren't the ones singing. It was the middle canvas and Sam himself, and it's almost like different parts of himself watching. But now that I've heard the lyrics, it might even be like what we think everyone else is doing, right? Where we're constantly being judged. Something that was really powerful there is never felt confident, never wanted to take my shirt off in front of girls, and that's, oh man, that one like honestly rings true, especially for me. Never quite had that confidence mentally about the way I physically look. And this extends to like people with just either confidence issues, or if we can go as far as like anyone with body dysmorphia, right? Where when you think of yourself as less, it often makes you think everyone else sees you that way as well, and then you become very self-conscious about what you expose. And we're talking about taking off the shirt, but shirt might even be metaphorical here, where it's taking off our guard, right, and letting ourselves be vulnerable around people and showing more of our true self. And maybe that's even what we're getting at when we're going into those lyrics, because something that we get here is, I'm afraid of everyone judging me. And that's what it constantly is. We're always thinking like everyone in our world is in some way, shape, or form is probably thinking about, oh, what am I doing wrong here? Like we overemphasize kind of our existence in other people's like vision or perceptions, because chances are most people like us, when we're walking around, aren't actually judging everybody around them, right? But for some reason, and a lot of this is because of the way society has been driven, and like when you think about like advertising stuff like that, like we've gone over all this before, but it gets into our mind that we have to be a certain way and look a certain way, act a certain way. And if we feel like we're doing anything different, well, then we're going to get ostracized for it. And so we're afraid of everyone judging us. But then one thing here that was said is, once they observe what I preserve, they stop loving me. And that just hurts because I did it first. God damn. Like that is such a line. There's so many layers that like preserve what, like, could it be preserving our own thoughts, preserving our own mind, and preserving kind of maybe the flaws that we have internally? But on top of that, we say that we were the ones that did it first because we saw those flaws in ourselves, decided that we weren't good enough, and cut ourselves off. And that's what the cutting actually is, right? And we cut ourselves off from the joys that we should be experiencing because we think that we're not good enough. And that's so hard hitting. Like that hits home so hard. Like as someone, who struggles with like imposter syndrome, it's like this is something that constantly comes up, right? You think like, oh well, sure, right now everything's great, but then once I mess up, is everything gonna just start to fall apart? Do I even deserve to be here? That kind of thinking that starts to happen, and it's all that spawns from the idea of judgments that we might receive, and that's just like what a crazy way to write all this down. Holy smokes. Okay, all right, this is gonna be one that hits home, so I'm definitely
I'm
not
no
ready.
good. Give me strength.
Oh
I've
wow.
cried too many times here in the quiet in my head. I hate myself, but I do it in private. I'm so scared. I just can't have you anywhere near me. 'Cause what if you see me the way that I see me? I think I
Oh, and that echo at the end is like the way that I see me. And it just keeps it kind of like mildly echoing in the back because that thought is always there. But even the way that the song builds up there into this, like the music swells because it's all that fear also, right? And it's not because if you listen to the music, it's not like a happy go lucky song. It has a nostalgic pain to it. I don't know if that's like the best way to put it, but that's kind of the experience I get with it. And that's kind of what we start to feel here, where it says, give me strength because I need strength in this situation. Like we've been hurt, we've been down, we've been this we've closed ourselves away from the world and sat in our bed and cried. And that's what we're talking about here because we hate ourselves, or at least parts of ourselves, but we do it in private because to other people would never know this struggle necessarily, right? Like when people see other people, oftentimes it's, hey, how you doing? Oh, fine. How are you? Right? It's very much a standard like don't share your problems with other people because that's what the rules or like I guess the guidelines that society has set in place, and it's totally not worth it because if you never see anyone's problems, then you think you're the only one that has problems. And we've talked about this a lot where it's this misconstrued version of existence where we think everyone else's life is great and ours is the only one with problems. And that just like compounds on itself. But then something that's kind of cool here is we're talking about being alone, and then we're talking about being scared because you don't want anyone else here. Because what if they really see you, right? And then even when we think about when we're talking about being alone, maybe private is in our mind, right? And now we're afraid to let this person into our mind where we think that they might find flaws and find problems that would draw away from how they feel about us. And then we'd be scared they'd leave us, they'd cut us off and go elsewhere. Damn. Okay. Wow. This is a lot. Okay. And it hits true for so many people, right? Like, oh, okay. Well, let's continue and we'll kind of do this in the wrap up. Sorry, I realized I rambled during the. Let's just go.
'Cause what if you see me the way that I see me? I think I want an apology to the kid I was when what if you see
Sorry,
me the way that I see?
I didn't want to pause there again, but something I wanted to mention is actually if you look at the two side panels now, they've joined in, right? And this is so meaningful because if it's just meant to be Sam's own mind, and that's so true that all parts of us begin to cry out when we realize that we feel like less than ourselves, right? And so that's our parts of ourselves crying out here, and it's even carried by the tone in Sam's voice, the way that he sings it. You can feel the pain, but also it's almost like a child that wants to reach out for someone's help but is afraid of doing so because they're afraid that they messed up and now they don't want to get in trouble for it. And that's almost like the vibe I'm getting from his voice. It's that innocence and that youthful fear that still exists within us because we're still vulnerable and we're still not 100% confident in ourselves. And that's how he's carrying his voice. Damn. Okay.
See me. I think I want an apology to the kid I was when I was young, 'cause I promised him that I'd figure all this out by the time that he got here.
Holy sh!
But that was a lie and I am still ashamed, 'cause I'm to blame. Oh.
Yo, honestly, when he started talking about owing an apology, I thought it was going to be to the person, but to owe that apology to yourself, yeah, that just hits so much harder. Like, it's so true too, because you can't ever, like, here's the thing about happiness, and the thing that many people don't realize is that, like, usually a lot of people look to other people to find their own happiness. And honestly, that's not usually the solution. The solution is finding happiness for yourself first and then finding someone else to enjoy that happiness with. But when you do it in reverse, you actually put a lot of pressure on the other person who is now responsible for your happiness. And then they also take the brunt of the lack of happiness that you might ever feel. And so to apologize to ourselves here, saying that, like, by this point in my life, I thought I'd be further. I thought I'd be better off, right? Because when you're younger, you look at adults, you're like, they got it all figured out. They know everything that they're doing. They never make mistakes. And then you get to be an adult, you're like, yo, I make a mistake like every 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And it's like, you always think that you should have been better when you look retroactively. But like, the one thing is, we don't even necessarily like to say that you need to apologize to your younger self. It's really yourself, and you did yourself a disservice by not kind of being able to grow and feel confident in the person that you became. Because and one of the things here that was said too is because that was a lie and now I'm still ashamed. And that's the thing, is like, we feel like we should have changed, we should have grown to someone better than who we are now. And then when we look at the person that we are in the mirror, we see that younger version of ourselves and we almost feel obligated to apologize. But guys, that's based on like retroactive vision, right? Like, it's retrograde. You would never have known where you would end up if you didn't know where you already ended up, because things could change and you never can predict the future. And so the choices that you made up to this point, you made them, maybe some of them were wrong and you knew at the time, but you made all of them with a situation that's very different from the one that you are currently presently in. So if you look back at a choice you made 5 years ago, sure, everything might be clear that you should have done something a little bit different. How could you have never known? How could you have ever known? And that's something that we don't think about enough. And so that we always think about, oh, well, then we owe an apology to our past selves. But really, we owe some gratitude to our present selves too, for making it to this, for getting here, and for being strong enough to be the person that we are. Like, pat yourself on the back, because damn. But wow, this song is heavy. Holy smokes.
'Cause I'm to blame. Oh, the war that I'm fighting is fought by a person I can't see. And lately I'm hiding, all 'cause of me. Give me strength.
Yo. This war that I'm fighting is fought by a person I can't see. And that could be so many different things. It could be the future self, it could be the past self, it could be that we're hiding from our true self. And so that's the person that's fighting. And it could even be the person who we're singing to in this song, who's fighting this war for us because we couldn't feel happy about ourselves, and they're trying their best to make us feel better, and then we're pushing them away. And there's just so many layers to this, right? And then on top of that, it's because, and lately I'm hiding, and it's all because of me. Because that's such a crazy thing, because it could be because you're sad about the mistakes that you've made, and so you're hiding from those. It could be that you don't like the person that you've become, so you've turned away from that person. There's just so many layers, right? But at the end, we still blame ourselves because it's all because of me. And that's how we always see life, is that if something's gone wrong, it's probably your fault, right? If something's gone wrong, we had something to do with it, because there's always that negativity that rings out if we let it. And that's why we just can't let it. Because that's not always the case. Sometimes things just didn't go your way. Sometimes a choice seemed better than it was. And there's just so many things that could mess us up. And then the traumas in our life, right, that aren't even our fault, that aren't even caused by us. Oh man, there's just so many layers, but all of them build into this negative emotion that we experience when we look back on ourselves, that frustration with life. And so we have trouble looking ourselves in the mirror because of all that pain that we see all over. Oh, Jesus. Okay.
And lately I'm hiding, all 'cause of me. Give me strength. I've cried so many times hearing the quiet in my head. I hate myself, but I do it in private. I'm so scared. I just can't have you anywhere near me. 'Cause what if you see me the way that I see me? Lost my head. I'm not too proud of the way that I'm hiding. Eyes are wet. Been months since I caught myself smiling. I'm so scared. I just can't have you anywhere near me. 'Cause what if you see me the way that I see me? Give me
man. Like, I like that we added in that, like, lost my head and not too proud of like what I'm hiding, the way that I'm hiding, because even when we're in that moment where we feel like, man, we should be better than this, right? Like we should be able to handle this. But then we go hiding away from all our pains, and then we're kind of disappointed again by ourselves, and that just compounds on top of the feeling that we were just having, because then we belittle ourselves even more, saying, hey, you should be standing up right here, you should be doing this on your own, you should be stronger than this, and you're not. Wow, you really must be weak. And that just compounds, right? Oh, Jesus, man. And then something that was said there is, I almost caught myself smiling, right? And that's such an interesting way to put that, because it's like when things have been bad for so long, those moments where you're actually having a good time, it almost feels like they shouldn't be happening, and so you feel like you're getting caught doing it, right? Like you're getting caught smiling. Like that sounds like such a sinister thing, but it's because things have been bad so long that happiness doesn't feel right, and so you feel like you're doing something wrong, when truly it's just the state that you're kind of in that moment. My god, dude, that's just like, and then we go back to like, that's why I can't let you close, because what happens if you see me? What happens if you see all this stuff that's going on in my head? Even if you don't agree with it, what happens if you see all this pain and all this confusion and all this chaos that's in my mind? And what if you can't, what if you don't like that either? Right? So maybe you don't think of all those bad things that I think about myself. Maybe you don't agree with those. But then maybe you see all those sides of myself where I'm having this constant internal struggle, and then you leave because you don't think that you can be a part of that. And so there's so many multifacets of this fear of letting people into who we are and letting people see our vulnerability. Jeez.
'Cause what if you see me the way that I see me?
Give me strength. I've cried too many times here in the quiet in my bed. I hate myself, but I do it in private. I'm so scared. I just can't have you anywhere near me. Cause what if you see me the way that I see me?
Yo, I was not expecting that to be the one to leave. I honestly thought he was gonna walk out. Okay. Something about Sam's voice first, because like there was like three versions of Sam I found throughout that whole thing. The first one is like this like worried version of himself. Then there's this like kind of lost, sad version of himself, and then there's this like, I don't know, like the version of itself that knows what it's doing but is hiding away from the rest of the world. And that's kind of like he just carried all those personas so well. But then the tone of his voice in certain moments, like if we go back to, and actually I'll go back to that right now just so you can kind of see it. Just listen to the way he sings the last part of kind of every two lines. It's so nice.
Me lost my head. I'm not too proud of the way that I'm hiding. Eyes are wet. Been months since I caught myself smiling. I'm so scared. I just can't have you anywhere near me.
Just that part right there, like you can feel the pain, right? You can feel the sadness and the grief, and then like the fear, but it's not a fear like terrified fear. It's a mellowed version of fear, but fear nonetheless of what happens if others see me the way that I see me. And then what do I do? Because what if everyone thinks I'm just as bad as I am? What if they figure out how bad I am? It's not even, and that's the thing here, right? It says see me, but it's like this is how we see us. This is not how others see us. And that's something that's really important. But I think what this song draws to light is that, yeah, we have a lot of vulnerabilities. There's a lot of parts to us that maybe we don't feel so comfortable with, and maybe we think we could improve. And sure, maybe they could be improved. But that doesn't mean that the person that you are is any less fantastic. And I want you to remember that, because that's really, really important. And I think that we don't hear that enough. Like when you really think about the unlikelihood that you are who you are and alive in this moment, there's so many things that led up to it. And I actually had an idea to do a video that kind of showcases that, because man, we're special. Like And I don't even mean that like we're special people, but I mean like it's super amazing to think that cells and atoms bound the way that they did, and then evolution and all that led to this person that you are now, like through thousands upon millions upon trillions of reproductions that lead to this person that you are now. For you to be given this opportunity to be alive, take it and run with it, because that's what we need to do. Because we, as far as we know, we've only got one shot, right, in this life. And no matter what life gives us, no matter how shitty things can be, no matter how bad things get, there's always more to life. And that's something that we got to strive for. And as much as we like, as much as we belittle ourselves, god damn, it took some strength to get to the point that we're at now, no matter what you faced, because problems are always relative, right? No matter what you faced something, and to get to the point that you are now, that shows strength and it shows resilience. And I hope that you remember just how amazing you are. Well, I think that's honestly about it. This is an amazing song. I really, stuff like this, it's perfect, because it really gives the artist a chance to reflect on themselves, but then gives us a chance to reflect, and helps us match this vulnerability that is definitely required in the world. I hope that your week is better than your day, your month is better than your week, and your year is better than your month. Love you all, and I will see you on the next one.